The destruction of the Dzunghars as a state, but also as a people, is one of the more powerfully impactful, but also peculiar moments in recent Chinese history. And we see one of the final episodes of that here in the engraving of the surrender of Yili in what is now the northern part of Xinjiang province. This is imperial propaganda par excellence. We'll zoom so you can see better. You know who's winning by the people on horseback, with everyone else bending the knee, because the Qing Empire wanted to be sure everyone knew what they had accomplished. In world historical terms, the Great Eurasian Steppe had finally been closed, and after millennia, no new empire would rise again from Central Asia to threaten the settled states around its periphery. This was an accomplishment of the Qing Empire, and something of which the Tang or Han emperors could only have dreamed. More particularly for Chinese history, it gave rulers in Beijing control of this great territory of Central Asia, with all that implies even today in our present. But I want to speak more about what made it so peculiar, and that is the policy of deliberate extermination, very aggressively pursued by the Qianlong Emperor and the Qing state. Now, killing one's enemies was not at all unusual for imperial behavior. But traditionally, a strong distinction was drawn between the leaders, the presumed troublemakers, and the regular folk or followers of any rebellion or movement. Once the threat had been suppressed and the leaders were safely dead, you typically let the followers go. And you could look at this on the one hand as an example of imperial beneficence, or maybe alternatively as a kind of traditionally dismissive elitist view among the Chinese literati that basically common people were like children and stupid, and therefore couldn't be really blamed when they did outrageous or even rebellious things. But often on this channel, we emphasize the Qing state as not entirely out of a Chinese tradition, but drawing from an inner Asian one. But in that perspective, the extermination policy is even weirder. In the world of the steppe, you didn't just let the followers go, you let the leaders go too, and more than that, you actually brought them in and made them one of you. There was a cultural framework for that, but also a frank recognition that out on the steppe, it wasn't just territory that made for wealth and power the way it might among the settled states of the periphery of the Eurasian steppe. It was about people and their animals, and so you wanted to preserve and incorporate all of those. And therefore, once he had been definitively defeated, your great enemy actually would become your kind of right-hand man, not infrequently. And for this reason, when the Qianlong Emperor kept urging again and again through all his communications that the Dzunghars had to be thoroughly exterminated, there was actually a lot of hesitation and, I guess, passive resistance among the people who were supposed to carry out those acts, who were often themselves either Manchu or Mongol generals. But so it went that eventually the Qianlong Emperor, as the son of heaven, got his way by a combination of outright murder, deliberate starvation, disease, and slavery, as some of the women and children were divided up for redistribution. The emperor himself would label this campaign as one of the 10 great accomplishments of his 60-plus year reign. You might understand, though, I think, how alternative commentators might have viewed it as somewhere from petty to pathetic to even more than a little bit demented, a sign of the moral rot already eating away at an otherwise prosperous age.